Well, once again, this is lesson 2B. 2B is going to cater for some projects which are going to help us understand what we learned in our lesson 1 and our lesson 2A. So we have covered some good work in our lesson 1, variables, we have gone into data types. So as I said at the beginning, it is always better to always accompany this work with projects, because projects are the ones which are going to help us to understand this programming language better. So we have to learn by doing and practicing real world projects. So the more we do small projects, we shall reach a time when we shall even go into deeper real world projects like e-commerce platforms with time. But we have to start from the beginning, and we understand these basics, because even these large applications are built on basics. Without basics, it will be very hard for you to understand everything in Python. So you have to know the basics, build some simple programs, and then go forward as you are advancing. So as I always make a reminder, you have to learn by doing, you have to seek help where necessary, and today we're going to look at projects. So to start with, we are looking at the first project, which is a personal budget tracker. So let us imagine that Amina has just landed her first time job. She earns 350.50 per month. She wants to know her balance after catering for her expenses, rent, food, transport. These are her expenses which she does have. So she needs now to cater for all these expenses. Then write a simple Python program that will help Amina or any other person go paperless and determine her balance. So this program is going to help you practice variables, practice how to deal with numbers, concatenation, and all that. So that's why this project was included in our lesson 2B. So I it is okay if you can pause and first try out by yourself, then after you come and check out my solution. So let's start now. So let's open our Visual Studio Code, then we can press Ctrl B to show this sidebar. Then you can create a file. You can create a file and call it projects. I just say basic projects .py. As I said, it has to end with .py, then press enter. So basic projects.py, press Ctrl B to enlarge our coding space. You can just close out this other window. So now our as we said from our project, Amina just landed her first job and she wants to be knowing her balance. That means you have to get her salary. Then after getting her salary, we deduct all the expenses, rent, food, and transport. Then we display her balance. So let us now start. So what do we start with? So back to Visual Studio Code. You can just start by printing a greeting message. Yeah, we can start by starting a greeting message, maybe by saying welcome, welcome to your welcome to your personal budget tracker. So this is something which someone will be able to see when opens the app. So let us try to run it and we see if everything is fine. Yeah, everything is working well. Welcome. I just made some mistake on welcome. Welcome like this. Welcome. Okay. So that is that. Let me just close some of these terminals. Okay, fine. So here now we are welcoming the person. So that is the first thing. But this is optional because you can just start the program directly. So because this program is catering for Amina, but it can also go ahead to cater for any other person. It means different people have different salaries. So we have to ask the person to enter the amount of money they make per month. So we can just store it in a variable called income, as we looked at variables, and we can say input because we want someone to input something, and we be like enter your monthly income. Enter your monthly income. So remember, after adding our monthly income, now it means, for example, someone has entered his 200. So we now have to get the expenses, because after someone has entered his income, we have now to deduct the expenses. So we are going now to handle the issue of expenses. So we are going to first handle the expenses. The expenses which we are given in our query, we have rent, food, and transport. So we can just go back to Visual Studio Code and we say food expense, then as a variable, food expense as a variable, and we say input. You are going to get user input, and you're going to say enter your food expenses. Then from there we are going to go to another line. You can just press shift alt and down arrow to copy the code to the next line. Shift alt and down arrow twice. So where we have food, we are now going to switch according to our program. We need rent, we need rent and transport. So back to Visual Studio Code. So here we have food. You can double click on food, then press Ctrl D. Ctrl D is going to highlight the next food. Just a second here. Okay, I'll just change this one to rent. Then enter your rent expenses. Then you can say transport. Then transport, and then sorry, my keyboard has some. My keyboard, I think I have to switch it. It has some, I think is not matching well with my, okay, I think now is fine. Sometimes the keyboard can be maybe switched to some kind of mode, so that's why sometimes I have spelling errors. So transport expense, and even here rent expense. So enter your transport expense. So this is what we are getting. So we are getting the income, then we are getting the user. The user is inserting in the food expense, rent expense, and transport expense. So what should we do? Let us now look for the total expenses. Let us look for the total expenses. How do we get total expenses? We have to add food expense, rent expense, and transport expense, and we can store them in a variable called total expenses. So when we store them in this variable total expenses, so it means we are adding food expense plus rent expense I'm very sorry, my keyboard is not matching. I think there are some configurations I have to make on my keyboard. So rent expense plus transport expense. Exactly. So this is how we get the total expenses. So after we have got our total expenses, now something you have to remember is, as we said in the previous lesson, in our lesson 2a, it is very hard to add a string to a string, because now when the user inputs this, it will automatically be considered to be a string, because we have not specified what type of the data the user is inputting. So we can just get this user input, what the user is inputting, and we convert it directly into an integer or a float. Like this income, we can just add int to make sure that the data which the person is entering is coming in as a number, so that we can be able to add it. Even this one we have to do the same way. It has to be an integer. The same thing that applies here. It has to also be an integer. Because if you don't do that, then you're going to get an error, because you cannot add a string to a string. You cannot add a string like adding, like dealing with it as if it is numbers. It is not possible. So you have to convert them. I think we saw type conversion is another lesson to how we do that. So this is how we are converting them. So after getting total expenses, which is equal to food expense plus rent expense plus transport expense. So remember, what does the program need us to say? The program need us to display to help Amina go paperless and determine her balance. So we have to determine the balance of Amina. So what will be her balance? So balance equals, how do we get the balance? The balance, we just have to get income, the total amount of money and income minus total expenses. So when we get income minus total expenses, we are getting the amount of money and we are storing it in a variable called balance. So from there, what should we do next? We are now going to display the results on the terminal, because now here we have just already worked on everything. Like if we try to run the program to check if everything is working fine, we can come here and we try out and see. Yes, welcome to your personal budget tracker and your monthly income. For example, 200. Enter your food expense 60, enter your rent expense 40, enter your transport 50. So our program is working well, no errors. So let's go forward. As I said, if your code is not wrapped, you just press RTZ to make it wrap, or so that it can fit on the time on the coding space. So now we're going to display the what? Display the results. Display the results. So how displaying these results? We can just display them in a professional way. We can say print, and then we say something like budget summary, and then we can still press Shift Alt and down arrow, probably thrice. Then we say print. What is our printing? We are going to print total. We are going to print total income, and so here we are displaying a figure. Now when we are using the print function, there is something we call formatted printing. Formatted printing helps us pass in these variables in here so that you can bring the value of, for example, income here, but without using concatenation, without using the plus symbol. Instead, we add a symbol F here, which shows that this print function it has a format that's called formatted printing. So when you put a formatted printing, we are going to say total income, and then when you want to add now that income, we just have to use these brackets, set brackets, and we say income. So it means that, and here we can add a dollar sign. Yeah, we can add a dollar sign. So it means that it's going to print total income, and then it's going to pick the information from the income variable which the user has input and bring it over here. Yeah, so after we have got the total income, and then what else are we printing? We are printing total expenses. Then we can also add a dollar sign. Then as I've said, we can add a formatted string, and then we can add now the value of the variable, that is total expenses. Like that. Yeah, then from there I can now bring the balance. Can bring the balance, can still use formatted printing and bring in the value here. The balance is as a variable which is carrying the balance of the person. So let's try to run the program and we see by clicking on this button. Sometimes you can click on a drop down arrow and you see something like run Python file. And let us start and we see welcome to your personal budget tracker and your monthly income. For example, 500. Press enter. Enter your food expenses. My food expenses were 100. Your rent expenses 100. your transport expenses 100. So it is going to print out that budget summary, total income earned 500, total expenses 300. It has added already 3, and then the balance is 200. So under balance, we can also add a dollar sign to make it look well. And also here on welcome, when we slash with n, we are creating a new line. Backslash with n, we are creating a new line. We just need to create some space here to make our program look more smarter. And at the end of it here, we can just say slash n. This is creating a new line. That's how we add a new line in Python. And then enter your monthly. This is okay. Then here under budget summary, we can also create a new line to make things look smarter. And then under balance, we can also add a new line with slash n, and that is it all. If you want, you can add a last print function, and you say designed by Kamate. Yeah, you can add your name. So let's try to run the program once again, and we see. We run and see. You see, so your income 1000, for the expense 100, rent 100, enter your transport 100, and it is bring our budget summary. Total income earned 1000, total expenses 300, balance 700, designed by Kamate. So this is how best we can go through this program. So when you do this program, it is going to teach you how to deal with the labels. I mean variables. You see how my variables are where they are declarative transport expense. Even if another programmer comes to check through my code, you can be able to know, oh, this one was calculating this. Even I have comments. Comments are available to show. Comments help another programmer when he's going through your code to understand what you were able to write. Yeah, so that's one of our first projects. So if we get back to our second project, we are going to look at an age calculator. So we're going to go through an age calculator. We see how we can calculate. Let's go through this scenario. Imagine you're building a form for a local school. You ask users for their birth year, and boom, you instantly calculate their age. It's a great way to show how Python can interact with the real world data and give you instant feedback. So you just ask for a user to insert their birth year. Then it automatically detects their age. So how do we do that? So I request you to pause and try it out before you check my solution. So let's go with my solution. So back to Visual Studio Code, we can just press Ctrl B so that we can create a new file. We can just say age calculator.py, and we press enter. So we can close this terminal here, age calculator.py. So now what are we doing first? We can just first print a welcome message, and we say welcome to this age calculator program. And from there we can just, now what do we need first? We need to tell the user to give us, let us press Ctrl B to create more space. What do we need? We need to tell the user to give us their birth year. Then we are going to get current year minus the birth year. So let us say birth year equals, we can just use a hyphen here, birth year equals. So birth year equals what? It is an input, but it should have to be an integer, because we are trying to make it a number. Since we are going to do math, we cannot subtract it when it is an integer, or sorry, when it is a string. It has to be an integer, a number. So from there, sorry, the spelling is not right. This is birth. Yeah, birth year equals that. So we're going to ask the user to provide us with their birth year. Enter your birth year. Enter your birth year. Then after the user have entered their birth year, so we now need to get the current year. Current year. So now in Python, we have what we call modules. So modules, they are frameworks which are designed and they help us to pick in different information which we can use in our code. For example, for Python to determine our current year, the current year of which we are in, we have to use a module which we have to import. So normally when we're importing, we import from the top. So we have to go to the top of the code, and now we import something from our date time module. So we shall say from second, from date time import date time. So when we do this, it means that we are going to use a code which is in date time as a module. From that time, then we're importing that module, as you can even see the comment. So date time is a module. So this module, we're going to use it to help us acquire the date, the year of the current year, to help us acquire the current year. So now how do you get the current year using the date time module which you have just imported? So we're going to say that current year equals date time, then we put a dot. Now, when you write date time and you put a dot, there you are trying to access different objects within that module. Yeah, as we go into object-oriented programming, we shall understand better what objects are. But when we write date and time, then you put a dot, we are trying to see what modules are in that date. So we shall say date time dot now. After saying dot now, now is a function which is in that module dot now. Then dot year, because when we just say dot now, it's going to bring the whole date, like maybe 1st September 2027, such a kind of things, or 1st September 2017, based on the current date. So for us to avoid that, we are just only picking out the year from that. We're just picking the year. So after we have known that, this is how we get the current year. So yeah, this one might seem complex for the first time, but you will get used when you work with modules as we continue these lectures. So we're going to calculate the age. So the age will be equal to current year minus birth year, which the user had to insert. So after that, minus birth year. So what do we have to print? We now have to print the age of the person. So we can just say print, then we can use formatted printing, then we put quotes, and we can say you are, then you can just put these brackets to display the age. As we saw in the previous project, you are probably maybe 18 years old in then the current year. Exactly. So this is now able to work out well. Now let us try to run our program, and we see by pressing this button. Let me first close this terminal here, then we run the program and see. As usual, you can press Alt Z to make the program get wrapped over here. Enter your birth year, for example 1990, and press enter. So it will automatically say that you are 35 years old in 2025, which means the current year at the time when this video is being recorded is 2025. Automatically has been detected from the module. So that's how modules work. We shall be having modules to handle math, for example, cosine, tan, that is called the math, like from pathlib, we have to import math. We shall be able to look at all of that. So when you just enter your birth year, it automatically brings up your date. So we can just make our code more cleaner by maybe adding in some new lines as we did last time. Just add a new line here so that when we run it, enter welcome to this age calculator, then enter your birth year, for example 20, 22, 21. So you are 4 years old in 2025. So that is it for now. And now before I go, we have to also understand something, that for example when we are running this program, sometimes you can run a program because user inputs are always different. You can tell a user to enter your birth year. Instead of entering the right birth year, someone just puts in characters. So if you put in these characters will not be an integer. So there is no how the current year can be deducted from something that is a float instead of an integer. When you press enter here, you're going to get an error, value error, invalid literal for int, because the integer cannot go with strings. It cannot accept strings. So we're going to be handling all those issues using the try and accept functions. So those ones are going to help us to cover up all that. So it has been nice being with you guys. See you in the next lesson. Bye bye.